Sister Teresa Maya is a member of the Congregation of the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word, San Antonio, since 1994. Her ministry has been in education. She has served as teacher, history professor, and administrator. She has a passion for the formation of ministers for Hispanics and Latinos in the United States. Leadership in her congregation inspires her conviction in the future of consecrated life. Sister Teresa got her BA at Yale University, her MA at the Graduate Theological Union at Berkeley, and the PhD in El Colegio de Mexico in Mexico City. She served on the Leadership Conference of Women Religious Presidency from 2016 to 2019, and she is currently serving as congregational leader for her congregation. In August 2018, I attended the National Catholic Sisters Project Conference, which focused on sisters telling stories, their stories from all over the world, and making those stories visible and relatable to all students. Sister Tere was our guest speaker, and she encouraged us to tell our own stories, to listen to our own dreams, and to live a life with purpose. During her speech, she said the following, and it has resonated with me ever since. She said, "If you live a life with meaning, then there is joy. Not temporary happiness, but joy." I have witnessed her servant leadership and her care for her fellow sisters, her work with the CCVI ministries, and her dedication to living a life for God and a heart for others. I look at her and I see true joy. It is my pleasure to present to you Sister Teresa Maya.
Thank you for the invitation, but mostly I'm impressed that you even took notes at that talk, Rosie. Thanks. Well, I'm going to start by saying thank you to Anna, to Rosie, and to all the people at Harvard High School who have made this academic year possible. I have been praying for all of you all summer because I have so hoped to have real in-classroom experiences for all of you. I am sorry that we're not in person, that I'm not in the auditorium, that we're not all together, that we're not seeing each other, but I think for now this will do, but I know and I trust that we'll be able to be there, and I'm really, really excited. I know that all of your teachers and staff want to keep you safe, but I also think that it is critical that we contribute to making San Antonio safe for all of us. So the time is coming, but for now, here we are. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I want to talk about how the time is now for us to become women of the word, not just me or your teachers, but all of us. And as I was thinking about this talk, I found out that Chadwick Boseman had died. And you know, the guy that did the Black Panther, the guy that did Jackie Robinson. And as I was reading about him and what this movie meant to the African-American community, I kept thinking about, you know, what it meant when I saw it. When I saw it, I really was impressed that all the roles were African-Americans, and not just the lead character, but everyone in this movie. And then I kept reading about it, and it said about how much this meant to basically to change the images we had of African Americans in life. But I realized that the one thing I remembered most about this movie wasn't necessarily the lead character, but it was the women in the movie. And I especially remember the sister. And she was the scientist. So here was this super cool laboratory, and the sister's kind of the brains of the whole thing, designing all these like cool outfits and suits and ways to communicate with her brother, for her brother and for the whole community. Shuri is her name. And I thought, wow, here's like a woman of color, an African-American woman who is not just in the movie as a sidekick or as a support role, but she is a smart woman. And being kind of like, you know, a nerd that I am, I was really impressed by her lab and her innovation and her creativity. And I realized we have to think about the images we have about women, about the words we hear from women. Who are these women that we look at? And as I was reading all of the stuff that they posted about what this movie meant to the African-American community, what it means at this moment in time, I tried to remember my childhood. Now, I'm very sorry to you all ladies, but I'm probably a little older than your moms. So my childhood is in the 1970s. In the 1970s, that's like a million years ago, okay? And so I thought, all right, what were like the superhero images of my childhood? And so I'm gonna show you what came to my mind immediately as I'm reading this. The first one was Wonder Woman. Now, when I was a kid, there was a TV show, Wonder Woman, and my sister and I loved this one. This is Wonder Woman riding on an airplane. It was the invisible plane. So Monica and I would twirl and twirl and twirl until we got dizzy, hoping that we would change into this like outfit. And then we would crouch, like squatting and pretending we were on an invisible airplane. Now, we had Wonder Woman, but my brother could be Spider-Man, Superman, Aquaman, Batman, Robin. He could be like, he had like 20 choices. All we had was like Wonder Woman. Now, a little later came Star Wars. So then we had Princess Leia. And of course, we try to, put stuff on our hair so we look like Princess Leia, and it was just Princess Leia. And of course, Princess Leia, there were like all these guys in Princess Leia. So my brother could be Chewbacca and C-3PO and Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and the Darth Vader and all the bad people. But we could only be Princess Leia. Now, as I was remembering this, I recalled a book that I recently read. And the book talks about other superheroes. And I think it's important that we consider that fast forward to last year, and we get the new Star Wars film. So I'm thinking, finally, there's a Jedi who is a woman. All these years, 40 years later, I could have been a Jedi instead of just Princess Leia, but now there's a Jedi, right? So I'm real excited. And, she has like a cool sword, like one of those lightsabers. And she fought in this like dramatic, epic thing, the ultimate bad guy. But in the end, I found this article in the LA Times. And look at the title. There are more women than ever in Star Wars. That's cool, I actually noticed. But men still do most of the talking. And this article was very interesting as I was reading through it, because, for example, it says how many words women spoke in the original movies. There's Leia, Padme, and Rey, comparing the different seasons of Star Wars, and then compared to the guys. So original movie, Leia gets 602 words, Luke gets 1,300. Padme, who by the way was the only woman in that whole movie, 837, and Anakin 1,400. And Rey, our new woman Jedi, gets 958 words. And she is the lead character, which is a big change, but still doesn't talk too much. And then here's how many actors and actresses there were in the Star Wars original trilogy and the prequels. The actresses are the blue, the actors are the yellow. This is my childhood. That's the original trilogy. There was just Leia. But now this is your childhood, the prequels. There's still very few women and very limited roles. That's what we're seeing on the movies. But if you think about a lot of other movies, I'm using superheroes as an example, but we could think of many other things. Think every time you watch politicians, count the women in the room. Think about, even today, a COVID report, count the women in the room, count the women on the screen, on the scene. And it's not because they're not smart or competent and brilliant, but there is something that we gotta do. There is something we all have to do, and especially this generation of Incarnate Word high school students. There's a task ahead. I'm talking about 40 years, and look how little the numbers have moved. Even though Disney was really proud of what they did in their last movie in terms of diversity. And so it gets even more interesting. This is what the article in the LA Times analyzed. Words that Rey says to Luke 485. But words that Luke speaks to Ray, 704. Or Kylo Ren, or Han Solo, or Finn. In every single case, Ray has less to say to them than they to her. Now, this might be only an analysis of a movie, and it might be something that the script writer didn't even think, but that's the point. This is unconscious. How do we become aware of who we are as women, of what our integrity, our dignity, our intelligence, our creativity, our capacity for fun, our capacity for compassion and love, how is it portrayed, and how do we gain for ourselves a rightful place as part of the human family? Half of the seats everywhere should be women's, because we are half of the human family. Not a third, not a fourth, not a tenth. We are half of the human family. I love guys. I love my brother. I love my friends. But they also need to support this. We all should be in this game, because when you miss half of the skill, of the creativity, of just the imagination, this world's not what it should be. It's not what God created it. Male and female, God created us. Male and female. That's what the book of Genesis says. So I want to recommend this book for some of you teachers, and I loved it. This is Carolyn Coca. She's a political sociologist. It's called Superwomen, Gender, Power, and Representation. So I was thinking through this, what are the images of women, superhero women, or anything out there? And she did an analysis of all the major Marvel comics that ever existed. And what caught my eye was at the very beginning of the book, in the introduction, she said the same thing. She said, the only two women I had as role models in childhood were Wonder Woman and Princess Leia. And so then she wrote this. She said, but now, as a political scientist who writes and teaches about the politics of gender, as a mother of a daughter who is the same age now as I was then. Now I am questioning why the proportion of female superheroes as compared to male ones hasn't really changed. Why they tend to be super sexualized along with being super strong, and why most of them are white and heterosexual and upper middle class and able-bodied. Now is the time to ask these questions, because between comics, films, live action and animated television shows, conventions, licensed merchandise, superheroes are billion-dollar transmedia global commodity. In 2016, there were over 25 television shows on air or in development, and over 50 films set to star comic-based superhero characters. About 7% of these are solo vehicles for female superheroes. Of the rest, about half have white male leads, and the other half have almost entirely white and male ensemble casts. The percentage of mainstream superhero comics starring female characters is at a high of about 12%. Now, this is someone that has analyzed all of the films and comic strips and everything there is for superheroes. The reason I think it's critical for us to see this is that it's still happening right now. Over 30, 40 years of women trying to gain a rightful recognition for their work, for their skill, for their ability. We just celebrated the anniversary of the women's right to vote. You saw 100 years ago, women fought for this right. You'd think in 100 years, we'd make a lot more progress than we actually did. In fact, in 40 years, we made very little progress. Today, 50 years, 100 years, depends on what you look at, whether it's civil rights movement or the women's right to vote. Women are still only 14% of leaders in this country, whether it's industry, nonprofit organizations, education. How many women presidents of universities do you think we have? How many women CEOs? How many women in positions in any industry, whether it's whatever? We're still not there. There's so much to be done. There are so many right words that need to be used. You need to learn at Incarnate Word High School how to be women of change, to give women their rightful place in the human family. And I'm not saying women are better than men. I'm not. I mean, these people say that, if women ruled the world, there'd be world peace. That's because they never saw my sister and I fought when we were little. Or they don't realize how gossipy we can be with one another. Oh my God, it's like dreadful, almost like terrorism. We're people. We make mistakes, but we have gifts. We have gifts this world needs right now. We have gifts that you all need to be able to offer. And now things are starting to change. For example, Marvel created a new character. And when I read that book I recommended about women superheroes, I was very impressed with what they had to say about Captain Marvel. I was never the prettiest girl in high school. I was a little fat and I considered myself ugly. The best show I ever watched was The Muppet Show, when it said there are millions of us who are ugly. And I was just like so happy. And of course, that meant I didn't qualify to be a superhero. But when I read about Captain Marvel, what made her a superhero is that all she needed to do is be herself. All she needed to do is just say, it is okay only to be me, only, which is not just enough, but amazing. Things are starting to change, but we got to keep changing them. When she realized this identity, she got her powers. Those are our powers, to know who we are and to love who we are. And even, me, I was ugly. I had to love myself as ugly. So we have to know who we are and own it. And now Marvel started this whole new series called Marvel's Voices for Native Americans, because they're also saying there's not enough of us represented out. So Black and brown people who are different. And they started this new series. You can even look it up in Marvel Comics. It's called Marvel Voices. And they're saying it's not right that all of the Native Americans are only showed with feather outfits. We want cool outfits like the rest of the superheroes. And there's a whole array of things you can look when you watch this. And there's even some featured essays. So English teachers out there, you can have some of your students read. Sorry, I'm giving you homework. But it's just something that we need to consider, because there's so much there for us to really imagine, for us to really consider. And why am I bringing this up? Why am I even talking about this? Let me show another set of images on your screen. Before the pandemic, my last trip, the last time I was on an airplane, I was in Mexico City at the beginning of March of 2020. And there was a huge march against violence to women. All over Mexico, all over Latin America for the last year, there have been marches to say we've had enough. We've had enough of laws that don't protect us against discrimination, against violence, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's sexual harassment at work. We've had enough of men that think that they have a right to just say whatever they want out in the street. Echoes of the Me Too, but beyond that, they were saying, we just want to be treated equally under the law. The march was huge. Look at these images on your screen. This is Mexico City. An incredible amount of women showed up. Little girls, moms, grandmothers, mothers saying, this happened to my daughter and I'm here to walk with her and I don't want it to happen to my granddaughter. I was moved by those marches. This was on Sunday, and that's why I chose a purple background today, because they chose purple. That's the color of these marches. And they're saying, we have to change this, because no one else is changing it. We have to be the agents of change, joining our little voices. So we can say, what am I to do? I'm stuck at home in this pandemic. Well, we'll get back to that in a little bit, but these are the images that came to mind as I was considering, what is ours to do now? What is yours to do? Because, my generation has tried real hard. My parents, my mom's generation, the sisters that came before me, they have fought for a place at the table. But now you're going to inherit this struggle. It is yours now, and you have to get ready for it. That's what high school is for, especially Incarnate Word High School. Look at what this t-shirt says. It's in Spanish. Por ellas, por nosotras, por todas las que hoy no pueden marchar. For them, for us, for all those that today cannot march. This is what happened in Mexico City. But we have to consider that this isn't just a struggle today. This isn't just a struggle that we deal with in other countries, because in the US, we got all these laws. The next image or moment I want to call to mind is this. It seems like a million years ago, but this was 1 year ago only. Remember this? The USA women won the World Cup. They won the World Cup. And wow, these are our women. These are you. This is today. And they celebrated World Cup championship, and we celebrated with them. It was awesome. But then they made us aware of all the discrepancy in sports, the coverage, the sponsorships, the salaries. And some people made fun of them, and some people were upset with them. And yet, to this day, for the same work, women almost never get paid the same salary than men, whether it's CEO, whether it's an accounting job, whether it's in the film industry, it doesn't matter where. There is so much still to be done. I share the story of the World Cup because when I was principal of one of our schools in Mexico, about my first principal, I think I was 20 years ago. And in Mexico, 20 years ago, only boys played soccer. There were very few female soccer teams. Some of you are soccer players. Well, when I was growing up, soccer was a boys' game, never a girls' game. And so I'm principal, and this group of third graders, little girls, come to my office, and they told me, "Sister, we have collected signatures." I said, "What? You collected signatures?" "Yes, of all the girls in the school. And we want a soccer team." I said, "Oh my God, well, but who are you going to play?" There's like, well, and they had done the research. Apparently some other school had a girls soccer team. So I went with the sisters with my petition to the principal's meeting. And the sister said, "We have never had a girls soccer team. Why would we have one now?" So I pleaded, I said, "Please give them a chance. These kids organized, they did a petition. We got, what if it doesn't work?" They said, "Well, then it doesn't work and we all learn together." Well, eventually, only 2 of our schools got female soccer players. Of course, they spend more time designing the uniform than practicing, but that's a whole other story. But my point is, that was only 20 years ago. That was even in sports. Women's sports are not considered as wow as guy sports. Why? Why? They're incredible athletes. I don't care, tennis, soccer, golf, basketball. Why? Because it depends on us. It depends on what we do. So I was very, very proud. I was very proud of Google because Google did this for the women's soccer players. When you searched on Google, you got the celebration of what they did for us. It's only been a year. What are we doing to get to a different place? What are we doing to be able to have something to show for our willingness to put women out there to contribute what they need to be contributing in the world, to be scientists, to be writers, politicians, women who lead nonprofit organizations, medical doctors. Think about this, women's health, women's health. Any indicator I look at, whether it's women's health, women and salaries, violence, there's work to be done. 100 years later, those women that fought for the vote knew all of that. It has to change, but it's not going to change without your generation. It is so important. I think of our sisters. You know why they created Incarnate Word College, which became Incarnate Word High School and the University of the Incarnate Word? So they could get educated, so they could be nurses, so they could do a good job at the hospital, so they could get educated, so they could be teachers and really teach women. Teach women to feel empowered to use all of their potential. Not all of us are going to be scientists or great at sports, but we each have to find out what we're good at. And we each need to develop that to our full potential. So that's my call. During high school, you got to figure out who you are. You got to figure out what gifts you have and what gifts you do not have. For example, I learned in high school, I cannot sing. Now, I'd love to be, like in the madrigals or something, but they would never take me. The sister that was in charge of the singing would say, you, move further away. No, further away. I'd be like, why am I even in this class? Until I got kicked out because I couldn't sing and I was so depressed. But then I had to figure out, well, no, singing is not going to be my career. As much as I love it, and I ruin everybody's music when I sing out loud, out of tone, and I'm kind of tone deaf. But what is it that I am good at? That's your job. And then perfect it. Make it yours. Show us what it is. I don't care. Is it writing? Is it science? Is it sports? Is it helping other people? Is it medicine? But your opportunity now is to learn who you are. Number one, homework. Number two is to cultivate that gift. Because then, if you do those two things, you're going to discover what your calling is in life. God gave us these gifts. That's the clue. What am I supposed to be when I grow up? You're supposed to be who you are, just better. Learning, training, doing the stuff, the work that you need to do. If you don't do that, this situation we are in will never change. It will not change for your daughters either. So these generations that have passed are now telling us, do your thing. Be women of the word. Be the women that God wants you to be so that this world can be better than what we have right now. Thank God for COVID. Because you know what? COVID can be an excuse. It will be the best excuse of your generation. Or it can be an opportunity. And this time around, we need technology so much that you're the teachers. Watch what you click. Watch what you forward. Because all of those companies are counting those clicks. You can be, like one of my old sisters says, digital activists. You can choose not to click on something that's demeaning to women. You can choose to forward a story that empowers women. You can choose to belong to groups or not belong to groups, but every click you do, every retweet, re-Instagram, every time you forward something, someone is counting. Those technological digital demographics are just as important as the census in the United States. What you do with that gives you all power. Your generation is going to make this difference. I believe in what you can do, and I believe in what Incarnate High School can do with you. It is unbelievable because there's so much to be done out there. I pray one day we will have like an all-women Avenger film, and some of you will be featured in it as scientists, as compassionate people, as medical doctors, as politicians that care about the people they serve. So I'm going to close by sharing one of my superhero with you. Okay, look at this sister on the screen. When she went to visit those kids, she was 92. Sister Anita Guadalupe was no more, I don't know, she was really, really short, very tiny, almost like, I'd say 4 or 5 or so. And Anita Guadalupe loved serving. She loved her life. She could drive with a pillow under her. I don't know how she could drive that size, but she was chief nursing officer. She was a teacher of nurses, And then she started retiring, and then she just volunteered. And when she was 96, she would visit patients in the hospital. Only 2, because she got really tired. She would knit little booties, and for everyone that had a baby in the hospital, whether it was a nurse, a doctor, anyone that worked there, nutrition, kitchen people, she would give them a pair of booties. A mom went to the hospital to have a baby, they would get a pair of booties. And she would always tell them, make sure that your child becomes the best that he or she can be. When she died, there were more than 1,500 people that came to her funeral. People that had been in the hospital 30, 25 years ago, and they said, this little sister changed my life. This little sister accompanied my mom until the day she died and taught us how to smile with life. Anita Guadalupe liked to go out and play cards with her friends when she was like 95. She loved to have fun. And one day she told me, I said, Anita, what's your secret? Why are you such a happy person? She said, because I learned to love myself and to see how God loves me. But more importantly, Tere, forget that. I realized life needs to be fun. You need to enjoy life. No matter what happens, you need to have fun. I said, oh my God, you know how few nuns tell me to just have fun? But here she was. She lived that long, made a difference in everybody's life, and you can tell in this picture. Look at her with little kids, 96 years old, totally engaging. That's my dream for all of you, to be women who are joyful in who they are and trust that who they are is what this world needs today to be a different place. So I give you these questions. How are you going to be women of the word? With powerful words, with compassionate words, with hopeful words, with creative words. How are you going to be women of the word? This is a chance for all of us. COVID is an opportunity. How can you use this opportunity to make a difference, especially the next few months that are going to become so complicated in this country? How are you going to make a difference with compassion, with words that transform, that unite, with words that tolerate and respect, with words that are open-minded, with words that are inquisitive and inspiring? You have those words. But thank you for inviting me. Thank you for who you are. And hang in there, because your life's going to be extraordinary.